Okay, John 9, 1 through 41. And as he passed by, meaning Jesus, he saw a man blind from birth. And his disciples asked him, Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? Jesus answered him, it was not that this man sinned or his parents, but that the works of God might be displayed in him. We must work the works of him who sent me while it is still day. Night is coming when no one can work. As long as I am in the world, this is still Jesus speaking, I am the light of the world. Having said these things, he spit on the ground and made mud with the saliva. Then he anointed the man's eyes with the mud and said to him, Go wash in the pool of Siloam, which means sent. So he went and washed and came back seeing. The neighbors and those who had seen him before as a beggar were saying, Is this not the man who used to sit and beg? Some said, It is he. Others said, No, but it is he is like him. He looks like him. He kept saying, I am the man. So they said to him, Then how were your eyes opened? He answered, The man called Jesus made mud and anointed my eyes and said to me, Go to Siloam and wash. So I went and washed and received my sight. They said to him, Where is he? He said, I do not know. They brought to the Pharisees the man who had formerly been blind. Now it was a Sabbath day when Jesus made the mud and opened his eyes. So the Pharisees again asked him how he had received his sight. And he said to them, He put mud on my eyes, and I washed, and I see. So some of the Pharisees said, This man is not from God, for he does not keep the Sabbath. But others said, How can a man who is a sinner do such signs? And there was division among them. So they said again to the blind man, What do you say about him, since he has opened your eyes? He said, He, meaning Jesus, is a prophet. The Jews did not believe that he had been blind, the Jewish leadership had been blind and had received his sight until they called the parents of the man who received his sight and asked them, Is this your son who you say was born blind? How then does he now see? His parents answered, We know that this is our son and that he was born blind, but how he now sees we do not know, nor do we know who opened his eyes. Ask him, he is of age. He will speak for himself. His parents said these things because they feared the Jews, for the Jews had already agreed that if anyone should confess Jesus to be the Christ, he was to be put out of the synagogue. That didn't just mean go home. It meant you were out of Judaism. So you had no way of being saved. So that was why it was so perilous for him. So therefore his parents said, He is of age, ask him. The man answered,
Yep.
Okay. The man answered, Why, this is an amazing thing. You do not know where he comes from, and yet he opened my eyes. We know that God does not listen to sinners, but if anyone is a worshiper of God and does his will, God listens to him. Never since the world began has it been heard that anyone opened the eyes of a man born blind. If this man were not from God, he could do nothing. They answered him, You were born in utter sin, and would you teach us? And they cast him out. Again, that meant not just temple, out of Judaism. Oh, Jesus heard that they had cast him out, and having found him, he said, Do you believe in the Son of Man? He answered him, And who is he, sir, that I may believe in him? Jesus said to him, You have seen him, and it is he who is speaking to you. He said, Lord, I believe. And he worshipped him. Jesus said, For judgment I came into the world, for those who do not see may see, and those who see may become blind. Some of the Pharisees near him heard these things and said to them, Are we also blind? Jesus said to them, If you were blind, you would have no guilt. But now that you say we see, your guilt remains. So that's the passage, and we're going to now go through these questions. So the first question says, Jesus said that a man was born blind so that God's power might be shown through him. Explain an obstacle in your life or something in your life or in your family that may exist so that God can show you his power. So I'm not going to have you say anything aloud about that because it's probably pretty personal to you, but please write it out and I'll wait and then we'll move forward. So I think I've told you my testimony, but part of that testimony, I believe, is it isn't a healing, it isn't a miracle, but I believe it was a time when, as it says here, a time in my life that happened just so God could show His power. Um, so I became a believer between my junior and senior year, June, between my junior and senior year. And the year before, we had left Brussels. I'll go back. For part of seventh grade and all of eighth grade, my dad was at Offutt and I was at Mission. And we went to Brussels, and I was there for my freshman and sophomore year, and then we moved. My dad retired, and he retired here, and I went to West. And that was the first year that West was in existence. And all of my friends that I knew from Mission went to East, and I went to West, and I had no friends. So I would, what?
So did you make new friends?
Eventually, yeah. Not until I met Christ, though. So I was lonely for the first time in my life because I was always surrounded by people. I'm an extrovert, the more people, the better. Um, and um, and so I believe God used that loneliness to draw me to Himself, and I think that's what made the difference. And then to answer your question, Josiah, my first day as a senior at West, so just a couple months after I became a believer, in almost every class I sat down, and it wasn't like we didn't have assigned seats, so it's like you could sit wherever you want, and in almost every class I was sitting next to a believer. One of those believers I heard talking to a football player, um, and uh, they were making a bet on the football game. At that time, I know you're not going to believe this, but East was the far better athletic school than West because West was brand new, and so they made this bet if we beat Bellevue East. And if we beat Bellevue East, that kid, Kevin, had to go to his youth group. We won, and he went. But I also asked that guy, "What's your youth group?" Because I knew my youth group was not going to feed me spiritually at all. We were singing songs like "Give me gas in my Ford, keep me trucking for the Lord." I mean, it's just not. It was not. We weren't. We never opened up the Bible. We never, we played games, and so I knew that, and I went, and that became my youth group, and those people became my friends. And I think God put that loneliness in me to do that very thing, to draw me to Him. So, next question. If you were a Pharisee, why would you be so angry that a man was healed? Would you be primarily concerned about the Sabbath, or would you have other motivation for your anger?
Just the man breaking the law.
Yeah, he's breaking the law, and that was unconscionable at that time. You couldn't do that. But Jesus is above that, right? Jesus is the author of the law. He uh, and I think if we were, we'd like to say, oh no, I'd be fine with it. But if you really were an ancient Jew, you probably would have felt the exact same way. Okay, next question. Do you think the blind man's parents took the easy way out because of their fear? Yes. Yes, it even says as much, right? If we say, yes, we're going to get kicked out of, and listen, it wasn't just getting kicked out of church. It was getting kicked out of Judaism, and they would have no way, they wouldn't use the word salvation, but there would be no way that they could have salvation. In other words, it would have damned them to hell. They did. And now, I'm not sure I blame them if I would have believed that and my son had done that. I don't know. But it isn't just like you can't come into the temple anymore. It's more than that. And then you can write what you would have done differently. I just told you I probably wouldn't have done anything differently if I were in their place. I do believe there's going to come a time, because the Bible tells us, when we will no longer be openly able to worship Jesus. And when that time comes, the punishment for that is going to be dire. And at some point, the punishment is going to be death. I don't know when that's going to come. But it is entirely possible, because there are places all over the world where if you are found as a Christian, you will lose your life. We are going to have, and I'm not going to say names on YouTube, we're going to have a couple missionaries tomorrow, right? And they've been in a closed country already, and they're going back to another one. If the people there find out, that if the government there find out that they are believers, they're at least going to get kicked out of the country, probably more. And I can't imagine having that kind of commitment. So it's coming to the United States, but it's not there yet. But we need to know that we will stand for Christ when that happens. Sorry. Okay, irony is a situation that is opposite from what we might expect. This chapter shows tremendous irony about who is blind to the truth about Christ and who can see it. How is irony present in this chapter? Who are the people that can, well, let's see, who are the people who are blind?
The blind man.
The Pharisee, we're talking about spiritual blindness, yeah. So the blind man can see, and the Jewish leaderships, the leaders, are blind, which it doesn't make sense, right? It's ironic because it's out of place. In this chapter and others before, the Pharisees are constantly attacking Jesus because of their spiritual blindness. Do you think they know the truth about him but are intentionally rejecting it? Or are they so stuck in their tradition that they don't understand? Why? What do you think?
I think they're like stuck. Like, I don't think they actually think he's a savior. I think they think he's just blasphemous.
Yeah. And there's an old saying that says there's none so blind than he who refuses to see. And I think that's what they are. They're refusing to see who Jesus is. They don't want him to be Messiah. So in some sense, they're just wishing it to be. We're done. You may chat.